Governor Abbot has signed a ban on trans women playing sports.
As a current professional athlete and former NCAA Division I record-breaking scholarship athlete, I have something I'd like to say to these defenders of women's sports. I fucking see through you. It's incredibly disingenuous to call this kind of legislation like a Save Women's Sports Act, because I've run the numbers and I come with receipts, and I know you don't fucking care about women's sports. To give you all a little primer on Title IX. When schools get federal aid money, like federal student loan money, they enter into a quid pro quo agreement with the United States federal government. They agree, I'm going to take your money, and in return, I'm not going to violate any federal civil rights legislation, including Title IX. In college sports, Title IX is supposed to ensure that women get equitable participation opportunities, scholarship aid, and what we call the laundry list, or the all-encompassing athletic experience. One more piece of information real quick, and then I'm going to show you just how bad the numbers are. Schools can legally demonstrate non-discrimination if they meet one of these three prongs to satisfy the participation part. Proportionality means if your school's 50-50 men and women, your athletic department, the roster spots should be allocated about 50-50 to men and women. The second one, if you can't satisfy proportionality, which a lot of schools can't, you have to demonstrate an ongoing history of increasing opportunities for the underrepresented gender. Meaning, if you cut a team, you have lost that prong forever. The third one is saying that you fully satisfy the interests and abilities of the underrepresented gender. These are the duplicated and unduplicated numbers for Texas in 2022. That might look like it's about 50-50, and I would remind you that women made up 57% of the student body of Texas last year. But if you're not a fan of college sports, you may not have heard about male practice team members on women's teams. So remember, when you look at those numbers up there, they actually include 45 men. Now, when the NCAA talks about male practice team members, although they get a lot of benefits, the NCAA doesn't really look at them as full team members. However, there's still men on campus that are getting an athletic opportunity that women aren't getting. Besides that, the NCAA doesn't have to comply with Title IX, and not every NCAA school has to comply with Title IX either, because there's a couple that don't get federal funding. So without cutting any men's roster spots in 2022, and even allowing for a bit of wiggle room that the courts have allowed schools when it comes to proportionality, Texas would have needed to have 127 more roster spots for their women on campus last year in order to have proportional participation numbers. Granted, Texas doesn't have to offer proportional participation opportunities, and we could do a longitudinal study of the size of Texas's athletic department. But if you think that in 30 years, a school going from 44% to about 46% for women is demonstrative of an ongoing history of increasing opportunities for the underrepresented gender of women, I think you got another thing coming. And I'm going to laugh in your face if you tell me that a school with an enrollment of 38,000 students, where less than 1.5% of the student body gets to play sports, and less than 1.2% of their women students get to play sports. And when you consider that there were about 3.4 million girls who played sports in high school in 2019, out of 15.3 million students total, with that number of girls playing sports in high school, you can't tell me that less than 1.2% of them getting a chance to play sports in college at Texas is fully satisfying their interests and abilities. So yeah, I meant what I said at the beginning of this video about the defenders of women's sports being incredibly disingenuous. We're going to celebrate the 51st anniversary of Title IX this week. So frankly, I'm pissed that these lawmakers are trying to act like they're doing something on the behalf of me and other cis women. It's fucking bullshit, because there's been decades of you allowing schools within your states to discriminate against women, so that we're missing out on approximately 200,000 participation opportunities every year and like $1 billion in scholarship aid. But you're going to spend taxpayer dollars through your salary writing legislation that is clearly transphobic to try to have an impact on this handful of trans women. How about you put half of that energy into making sure that we actually get what we were supposed to get all along? Save women's sports, my ass.